The room was silent. Too silent. Not a breath, not a cough, not even the whir of a camera shutter dared break the tension. At the center of the chaos, a man in a plain gray suit, eyes steady, fingers brushing the edge of a thin manila folder. Kash Patel. Across from him, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, her gaze locked, jaw tight. And then he said it. "This memo. It bears your name, Your Honor." A flicker. Just one. But it was there. Her expression changed. Not fear, not guilt. Something worse. Recognition. A gasp rippled through the courtroom like thunder under marble. Patel placed the folder on the table, not flipping it open yet. No, that would be too easy. "This document," he continued, "was buried by those who hoped it would never see the light of day, and it could change everything." Cameras clicked, reporters typed. A justice swallowed hard. "And you're about to find out why this one piece of paper might just crack the very foundation of American justice. But first, how did we get here?" It started, as these things often do, with a leak. Not a rumor, not gossip. A hard drive, sent anonymously to a journalist. And on that drive, a list. A long list. Journalists, politicians, activists, ordinary citizens, names all flagged for surveillance by the NSA. No warrants, no cause, no oversight. At first, the media didn't know what to make of it. But when 3 independent tech labs verified the data's authenticity, the dam broke. Outrage surged across the nation. Protesters flooded the steps of Capitol Hill. Hashtags trended, whistleblowers whispered, and Congress scrambled. In response, a powerful bipartisan committee was formed. The Special Committee on National Security Transparency. Its mandate: expose how far the surveillance state had gone, and who let it happen. To preside over it, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, chosen for her legal brilliance and reputation as an incorruptible conservative constitutionalist. The public trusted her. Maybe that was the point. And the witness called to testify: Kash Patel, newly appointed FBI director, former Trump advisor, and the man who publicly released a batch of declassified memos that shook the intelligence community to its core. Memos the government said were unauthorized. Memos Patel claimed were proof of abuse. The committee wanted answers. Barrett wanted order. But Patel brought fire. What they expected was testimony. What they got was a folder. A single folder. Slim, unassuming. Inside, a memo. One with a name no one anticipated. Amy Coney Barrett's. How did the judge at the center of the investigation become entangled in the very thing she was investigating? Was she complicit, manipulated, or had she unknowingly signed a document that would later be used to authorize illegal domestic spying? Patel wasn't just accusing systems. He was pointing directly at the bench. And that's when the hearing, and perhaps the court itself, began to crack. So when Patel said, "This memo could change everything," he meant it. It was standing room only. Reporters lined the back wall. Every seat packed. Security flanked every aisle. Protesters outside the courthouse echoed like a distant drumbeat of a nation unraveling. At the center, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, seated like a statue carved in principle, spine straight, eyes steely. She was calm, but not untouched. Across from her sat Kash Patel, not a politician anymore, not just a bureaucrat. Today, he was something else, a disruptor, a detonator. Cameras clicked, live streams rolled, Twitter was already on fire. And then Barrett spoke, her voice firm, cutting through the tension like a scalpel. "Mr. Patel, the committee demands you disclose the origin of the documents you released. Transparency is not optional." Patel didn't blink. He leaned in slightly, the ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "With respect, Your Honor, sometimes the truth shows up in unexpected places." A senator scoffed audibly. "This is no stage for parables," barked Senator John Carter, red-faced, leaning into his mic. "You're not here to perform, Patel. You're here to answer." "And I will," Patel replied, his tone even. "But ask yourself, why are you more concerned about where the documents came from than what they show?" Murmurs surged through the crowd like static. Justice Barrett's eyes narrowed. "This committee operates under rule of law, Mr. Patel, not innuendo." "Then let's talk about the law," Patel said coolly. "Specifically, the FISA warrant system and how it was weaponized to spy on American citizens." "By whom?" another senator demanded. "That," Patel said, "is why I'm here." He tapped the folder in front of him, just once, a simple sound, but it thundered across the courtroom like a starter pistol. Barrett adjusted her posture. "What is in that folder, Mr. Patel?" He looked up, locked eyes with her. "Evidence, declassified, verified, and bearing your name, Your Honor." The words hung in the air like smoke, thick, undeniable. The room froze. One reporter's laptop slid off their lap and hit the ground with a loud clatter. No one moved. Barrett stared at Patel, unblinking. "Are you accusing this court?" "I'm not accusing," Patel said. "I'm revealing." Cameras zoomed in, fingers flew across keyboards. Outside, chants intensified. Barrett's name was in a memo. A memo tied to surveillance. A memo Patel was about to expose. But before he could... Barrett leaned forward, voice lower now. Less thunder, more steel. "If you're making baseless claims, Mr. Patel, there will be consequences." Patel's voice didn't rise. He didn't posture. "I understand," he said simply, "but before you judge me, perhaps it's time someone judged the system we all serve." That's when Senator Lisa Hayes, calm until now, chimed in. "Let him speak." Carter slammed his fist. "You want to let this man turn our courtroom into a conspiracy theater? Hayes, or maybe you're just scared he's holding something you can't spin." Barrett slammed the gavel. "Enough." Silence. And then, finally, she looked at Patel. "If you have something, present it. But understand, this committee will not tolerate theater." Patel nodded once. "No theater, Your Honor," he said. "Just truth." Patel sat still, hand resting gently on the manila folder like a priest guarding scripture. The air inside the courtroom felt heavy, not warm, not cold, just dense, like gravity itself had doubled. Barrett exhaled slowly, her fingers tightening around her pen, a justice used to controlling the room, now watching it slip from her grasp. "Mr. Patel," she said, "if that document is legitimate, produce it. This committee doesn't play games." Patel looked up, then to the senators flanking her. Hayes with her arms crossed, curious. Carter with his jaw clenched, suspicious. The others, unreadable. He took a moment, just long enough to make them sweat. Then he spoke. "What I'm about to reveal," he said, "was never meant to be seen. Not by this committee, not by the press, not even by you, Your Honor." A pin could have dropped. No one would have heard it over the sound of their own blood pounding in their ears. "This document," Patel continued, "was buried. Deep. In a secure vault within the Justice Department's classified archives. It was signed 2 years ago, during the height of an internal security operation the public still knows nothing about." He tapped the folder again. "And it bears your signature." Barrett's expression didn't change, but the shift was unmistakable. A tiny intake of breath, a flicker in her eyes, a brief twitch of the jaw. She didn't deny it. Not yet. Carter was the first to lash out. "This is ridiculous, fabricated. The Justice Department would never—" "They did," Patel interrupted. "And they knew exactly what they were doing, hiding this paper trail until the heat died down." Hayes tilted her head. So tell us, what does it say? Patel leaned forward, slowly, deliberately. It's a FISA application filed under Counterintelligence Authority. It authorized surveillance, not of foreign agents, but of domestic journalists, civil rights activists, opposition political candidates, people with no criminal record, zero threat profile. He paused. And it was signed by Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Shock rippled through the room. Barrett's fingers went rigid around her pen. One senator mouthed, "No way." She responded, voice low but sharp. "That's impossible." Patel didn't move. "Your Honor, you signed hundreds of FISA warrants. You trusted the paperwork, the summaries, the national security tags, but this one was weaponized." Barrett looked down, her face unreadable. "That application was classified." "It was," Patel replied. "Now it's not." He slid the folder toward the center of the table. "Legally declassified, verified by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Chain of custody intact." Barrett didn't reach for it. Not yet. The courtroom trembled with restrained noise. Not voices, but the sound of restraint giving way to disbelief. Hayes glanced sideways. "You're telling us the Supreme Court was used to greenlight domestic political surveillance?" Patel nodded. "Not the court, a signature. And finally, slowly." Barrett extended her hand. She opened the folder. One sheet, letterhead unmistakable, the word declassified stamped in red, her name, her signature, her initials, scrawled in the margin. Barrett stared at it for what felt like forever. When she finally looked up, her voice cracked, only slightly. I didn't authorize this." Patel met her eyes. "Maybe not, but the system used you to do it." The room imploded. The paper sat between them like a weapon. Barrett stared down at it, not blinking, not breathing, just trying to process the weight of the ink that bore her name. She'd signed hundreds of FISA warrants in her time, maybe thousands. But this one was different. This one wasn't about foreign actors or suspected terrorists. This one had authorized surveillance on a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, on a Senate candidate in a swing state, on a high school civics teacher who had simply started a protest blog. This wasn't national security. This was national betrayal. And her name was right there. I never saw this context," Barrett said at last. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like glass. "These applications arrive with summary briefs. I was told it was counterintel, that there was urgency." Patel didn't interrupt. He let the silence eat the room alive. Finally, he said, "That's exactly the problem. The system didn't need to lie. It just needed you to trust." The document trembled slightly in Barrett's hands. Whether from shock or fury, no one could tell. Then Senator Carter erupted. "This is manipulation. A smear. That signature could have been photocopied, doctored, AI generated. We don't even know this is authentic." Patel turned, calmly sliding a second sheet across the table. "Chain of custody log, verified by ODNI, time-stamped, metadata intact, signed off by 3 independent validators. You want more? I have the emails too." Carter didn't respond. He couldn't. Hayes leaned forward, her eyes laser-focused. "Your Honor," she said to Barrett, "if what Mr. Patel says is true, you've been used. We've all been used." Barrett said nothing, but her expression said everything. In her mind, the pieces were falling together, faster than she could stop them. That FISA stack 3 years ago, hundreds of pages rushed through over one long weekend. Redacted summaries, highlighted briefings, all bearing urgent stamps. Potential domestic threat. Expedite authorization. She remembered the memo's language now. Foreign influence vectors via sympathetic press channels. But no one said the press channels were American. No one said the targets were journalists. "I trusted the summary," Barrett whispered. "I trusted the process." Patel's tone softened, not out of pity, but precision. And that's what they wanted, because if they can use a Supreme Court justice as a rubber stamp, what can't they do? The courtroom wasn't just quiet now, it was paralyzed. One of the reporters in the back live tweeted in real time, "Breaking. Barrett admits she signed memo Patel says was used to target journalists. Says she was misled. Full-blown meltdown in session. Barrett memo." The tweet exploded. Screens lit up across the room as staffers and interns checked the reaction. Millions were watching, and Barrett knew it. Her hands dropped from the document. "How many people were surveilled under this?" she asked. Patel didn't look away. "Hundreds, maybe more. The list was updated weekly. I have the logs." Barrett's face changed. Something deep behind the eyes. Not just disbelief, but awakening. The kind that hits you in the ribs and keeps twisting. "And I was the legal authority," she said slowly, "that made it possible." Patel didn't answer. He didn't have to. Barrett turned to the committee, her voice still composed, but carrying something else now. "Resolve. I want an independent review," she said, "of this memo, of every warrant I've ever signed tied to this operation, and I want it made public." Carter scoffed. "This is a circus." Hayes smirked. "Yeah, but the tent's yours." Barrett stood. "Mr. Patel," she said, eyes locked on him, "if you have more documents, I want to see them, all of them." He nodded once. "Then buckle up." Because the memo was just the beginning. The courtroom was still spinning, but the outside world was already sprinting. Within 60 seconds, Patel's folder and Barrett's signature were trending across every platform. On X, formerly Twitter, the hashtag #, Barrett Memo had hit the global top 10 in under 5 minutes. By the 10th minute, it was #1. Breaking. Justice Barrett's signature found on memo authorizing surveillance of journalists. Patel drops declassified document. Chaos in courtroom. Barrett memo, tweeted Sarah Lynn, lead national security correspondent for The Washington Post. That tweet alone had 1.3 million impressions in under an hour. News outlets scrambled. Some reported Patel's revelation as a scandal. Others called it a political stunt. Headlines divided the nation. CNN, Barrett implicated in FISA abuse. Patel drops bombshell. Fox News, deep state cracked. Patel confronts Justice Barrett with damning memo. MSNBC, a calculated attack or an unthinkable oversight. Meanwhile, the protesters outside, those who'd shown up with vague anti-surveillance signs, now had a symbol. They began chanting, "Read the memo," and "No more rubber stamps." As news vans swarmed the courthouse steps, police formed a perimeter, barricades rattled, flashbulbs sparked like lightning. Inside, staffers were on phones with press secretaries, aides whispering updates in real time. Barrett sat still, hands pressed flat to the table, flanked by silence, her face unreadable. Her eyes locked on the declassified document she never imagined seeing again. Senator Carter looked like he wanted to explode. Hayes, meanwhile, opened her tablet and began scrolling Twitter, watching the world react in real time. "We've lost the room," a staffer whispered to a committee aide. "Forget the room," the aide replied. "We've lost the country." Meanwhile, in the back of the room, Sarah Lynn's fingers flew across her keyboard. Her face was pale, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of knowing this wasn't just a story. It was a moment. The kind reporters live for. The kind history books don't forget. Her live thread was already at 30,000 retweets. Her latest post? Patel says he has more memos. Barrett calls for independent review. This is Watergate for the surveillance age. Barrett memo.
Some called it an ambush. Others called it accountability. But one thing was clear. The story had already left the courtroom. The memo was no longer just a sheet of paper. It was a national reckoning. And Patel, love him or hate him, had just lit the match.
While the world screamed Barrett's name and Patel's folder dominated every news cycle, a woman sat alone, watching from the dark. Her name was Emma Carter, and she was the reason any of this was happening. In a cramped apartment just outside Richmond, Virginia, blackout curtains drawn, laptop glowing, she sat on the floor, knees tucked to her chest, staring at the live stream of the hearing. Her heart thudded in her ears as Patel said the words she never thought anyone would say out loud. "This document was buried. It bears your name, Your Honor." Emma exhaled sharply, a tear sliding down her cheek. Not from fear, not from regret, from relief. She had copied that memo from a secure NSA terminal 4 months ago. She had encrypted it, sent it through an untraceable channel, prayed Patel would be brave enough to use it, and now he had. Emma Carter wasn't a hacker. She wasn't a journalist. She was an NSA systems analyst, a rule follower, a patriot, someone who used to believe the job meant protecting Americans from enemies abroad. But one day, that belief shattered. She was running a routine audit on a surveillance cluster when she saw them. Internal memos marked eyes only, authorizations that bypassed judicial review, warrant approvals using court signatures repurposed from unrelated cases. Her eyes had scanned the names. Sarah Lynn, journalist, flagged for foreign influence risk. Malik Diaz, activist, flagged for civil disruption potential. Representative Rachel Whitmore, flagged for policy extremism. These weren't terrorists. These were Americans. She'd followed protocol, reported the discrepancies to a supervisor. 2 hours later, her workstation was remotely wiped, her security access downgraded. Her name was suddenly on the monitor list. She got the message, so she made a copy, a small one. The memo with Barrett's signature, a list of names, a chain of emails between the NSA, DOJ, and internal FISA liaisons. And then she disappeared. 3 apartments, 2 burner phones, 1 encrypted USB drive mailed to a single man, Kash Patel. He was risky, political, loud, but he was also willing to say what others wouldn't. Now, watching the fallout from her small screen, Emma saw what her act had unleashed. Protesters on the courthouse steps, senators flailing under the pressure of exposure, Barrett staring down her own signature like it was a loaded weapon. And Emma, she was still hidden, still hunted. But for the first time, she felt seen. She reached for her burner phone, opened a secure chat thread to an anonymous reporter contact, typed 2 words. "It's real." Somewhere deep within a government building, far from the noise of the courtroom, beyond the protests and press, a different kind of war was unfolding. A quiet one, a digital one, and it started with 2 words. He exposed it. Robert Klein, Director of Strategic Intelligence at the NSA, read the message on his secured tablet. His lips didn't move, his eyes didn't flinch, but inside, a decades-old firewall had just cracked. Across the table sat 3 of his senior advisors, each with laptops open, feeds from the hearing playing in miniature windows. Barrett's name, Patel's memo, all of it out in the open. Klein didn't shout. He didn't panic. He gave an order. Initiate contingency protocol Sigma 4. One advisor, Clara Evans, was already typing. "We've got assets lined up, articles pre-drafted. A former analyst in Montana willing to say Patel offered him money to forge documents." Klein nodded. "Good. Leak it through foreign syndication first. Then let U.S. outlets pick it up reluctantly. Gives it legitimacy." Clara looked up. "And Barrett?" "We keep her clean. For now. If she calls for a real investigation, We'll remind her of her past clerks, her speeches, the sealed financials. We don't touch her unless we must. Clean turned toward the window. Washington lay beneath him, glimmering, humming, unaware. This entire operation cannot fall apart over one folder. Another advisor spoke. What about the source? Clean's gaze darkened. Find her, fast, no arrests, no noise, just silence. Inside the courtroom, chaos reigned. But behind closed doors, the machine was rebooting. False narratives were being seeded. Shadow dossiers resurrected. Patel's credibility would be questioned by morning. But what Clean didn't know was that Sarah Lynn had already intercepted one of the fake articles. And Emma Carter? She wasn't just hiding anymore. She was ready to fight back. Just when the committee thought it had seen the worst of it, the memo, the signature, the stunned justice at the helm of it all, Patel spoke again. Before I sit down, he said calmly, I have one more document to submit. Everyone froze. Justice Barrett, who had been collecting herself, regaining her composure after the blow of seeing her own name on the surveillance memo, looked up sharply. Another memo, Senator Carter growled. Patel shook his head. An email. He reached into the folder once more, thinner now but not yet empty, and pulled out a printed email chain, redacted for names but not intent. This was sent from Justice Barrett's office, he said, placing it on the table. Time-stamped just 2 days after the FISA request was signed. Barrett's brow furrowed. From my office? Yes, Your Honor, Patel said, to the Office of Legal Counsel. Hayes leaned forward, reading the top line as Patel continued. It's a request to delay the disclosure of whistleblower reports tied to the same surveillance program. A cold silence fell. For what reason? Senator Hayes asked softly, already guessing the answer. Patel answered anyway. Due to politically sensitive timing. Carter exploded. That's a stretch. Any office sends routine communications. Routine? Patel snapped for the first time. Suppressing whistleblower disclosures because it might embarrass someone before midterms is routine now? Barrett stood slowly. I never sent such an email. No, Patel agreed, but your aide did. With your authorization, the digital signature is in the metadata. Barrett stared down at the page. The words were right there. Per Justice Barrett's direction, request a 90-day delay in compliance with FOIA filings connected to the FISA docket. Her name, her office, her instructions. It was all there. And worse, it wasn't buried. It had been waiting. Hayes whispered, she knew. Barrett whispered louder, I didn't know the connection. I didn't know what it was tied to. I was told it was a procedural delay. But the room had turned. The cameras clicked, phones lit up, reporters sprinted for signal. Sarah Lynn's tweet hit X like a hammer. Breaking. Patel presents email from Barrett's office delaying whistleblower files for political timing. Crowd erupts. Barrett email. FISA scandal. Outside, the chants changed again. Now it wasn't just read the memo. It was release the emails. Barrett's lips moved, but no words came out. Patel just sat quietly. One final glance, one final document, and the whole machine trembled. The courtroom no longer held order, only consequence. A justice shaken, a memo exposed, an email undeniable. Senator Hayes sat back, arms crossed, face pale not with fear, but realization. Senator Carter was still barking, still scrambling for footing, but even he seemed to know. The dam had cracked. And Kash Patel. He remained still, unshaken, because he hadn't just dropped documents. He'd ripped the mask off the process itself. Justice Barrett slowly sank back into her seat, her fingers no longer trembling, but tight with resolve. This committee, she said quietly, will recess. I will initiate a full internal review of all signatures attributed to me, and I will personally request an independent investigation. Patel gave a small nod. That's all I ever wanted. Reporters surged. Camera flashes burst like a thunderstorm. Social media detonated with one word: accountability. But outside the courtroom, beyond the marble walls, outside the swirl of media spin, something else happened. In a shadowed apartment, Emma Carter closed her laptop. The storm had started, and she wasn't invisible anymore. Across town, Sarah Lynn filed the final draft of her exposé. Inside the signature that sparked a reckoning, and across the nation, millions sat on couches, stared at phones, and asked the one question no system ever wants to face. How much of our trust was based on a lie? A document was signed, a system was manipulated, a voice was silenced. Until now, what Kash Patel revealed wasn't just a memo, it was a mirror. And every institution in its reflection had to decide whether to blink or finally face itself. Because in a world that buries truth, suppresses dissent, and weaponizes secrecy, real accountability doesn't knock politely. It breaks the door down. And truth, it doesn't need permission. It just needs someone brave enough to hold it up, even when the whole world is watching. This was never about one memo. It's about whether justice still has a pulse.